Well, welcome back. Here we are in Chapter 9 already. We're going to be talking a little bit more with some inference and significance tests. We're just going to go over the basics here in Section 1. So adjust that just a little bit. There we go. All right, so here we go. Some learning targets that we have. We're going to be talking about the hypothesis for a significance test, the p-values, conclusions, and then we're going to look at Type 1 and Type 2 errors in the second part of Section 1 here. So, all right, so let's kind of get started here with some beginning things. Confidence intervals, which we've been talking about Chapter 8, are one of the two most important or most common methods of statistical inference. The other one is called a significance test, and allows us to weigh the evidence in favor or against a particular claim. So a significance test, now always heard of it as a hypothesis test, is a formal procedure for using observed data to decide between two competing claims called hypotheses. Now, the claims are usually statements about parameters, so make sure we're talking about populations, not samples. All right, now the claim that we weigh evidence against in a significance test is called the null hypothesis. So it's H with the subscript 0. We'll read that as the null hypothesis. And the claim that we're trying to find evidence for is the alternative hypothesis. So H with A meaning alternative hypothesis. All right, so now let's just say a free throw shooter claims that his long run proportion of made free throws is 0.8. He's an 80% free throw shooter. But as we know many people do, we suspect he's probably exaggerating a little bit. So our null hypothesis is going to be, all right, that is indeed an 80.8 or 80% free throw shooter. And the alternative hypothesis, of course, is here that he's actually less than that. That maybe not so good. All right, now the alternative hypothesis is one-sided if it states the parameter is either greater than or less than. Okay, so it's got to be greater than or less than. All right, now the alternative hypothesis is two-sided if it just means it's different, so it's not equal to it. And so it could be greater than, it could be less than. Okay, so one-sided or two-sided. So that's kind of the difference of what we're looking for those alternative hypotheses. All right, so here we go. Let's talk about stating these hypotheses. Now, at the Hawaiian Pineapple Company, managers are interested in the size of the pineapples grown in the company's field. Now, last year, the mean weight of the pineapples harvested from one large field was 31 ounces. A different irrigation system was installed in this field after the growing season, and managers wondered if this change would affect the mean weight of pineapples grown in the field this year. Now, state an appropriate hypothesis for performing a significance test, and be sure to define the parameter of interest. So one way that we could define this, we could say that our null hypothesis is that the actual population mean, notice how we use mu and not x bar, is equal to 31. And our alternative is saying, we're going to say it's not equal to 31. And we'll see if that irrigation system changed. So that's the alternative hypothesis that we have. And again, mu is, of course, the true mean weight of all pineapples grown in the field this year, true meaning from the population. Okay, remember those hypotheses always are dealing with parameters and not statistics. All right, so again, now the hypothesis should express the belief or suspicion we have before we see the data. And a little exam tip here is that hypotheses always refer to a population. So be sure to put them in terms of parameters. So in this case, we don't do it with x bar, we do it with mu. We don't do it with p hat. Okay, so don't use statistical terminology, use parameters. All right, now a player claimed to make 80% of his free throws, made only 32 of 50, so 0.64 in a random sample of 50 free throws. All right, this is evidence against the null hypothesis that p is actually 0.8, and in favor of the alternative hypothesis that, well, the actual percentage is less than that. But is the evidence convincing? All right. Now, in other words, how likely is it for an 80% shooter to make 64% or less by chance alone in a random sample? Now, in 400 sets of 50 shots, there were only 3 that were equal to, less than or equal to the observed 0.64. All right, so the p-value of a test is the probability of getting evidence for the alternative hypothesis as strong or stronger than the observed evidence when the null hypothesis is actually true. All right, so in this case, our p-value 3 out of 400 is 0.0075, so 0.75%. All right, so we'll show you how to calculate these p-values later as we go, but for now we're going to work on just interpreting. So we'll give them to you, and then we'll work on, well, how do you figure those out is what we'll kind of look at. All right, so let's go back here and let's take a look at this. Now, calcium is a vital nutrient for healthy bones and teeth. Now, the National Institute of Health recommends a calcium intake of 1,300 milligrams per day for teenagers. The National Institute of Health is concerned that teenagers aren't getting enough calcium on average. This is true. So researchers decide to perform a test where the null hypothesis is that the mean is 1,300. The alternative is, nah, they're getting less. We're saying that the actual population is less than that. Where mu is the true mean daily calcium intake in the population of teenagers. Now, they ask a random sample of 20 teens to record their food and drink consumption for one day. And the researchers then compute the calcium intake for each student. Now, data analysis reveals that the sample mean was 1,198 milligrams, and the sample standard deviation was 411. Now, researchers performed a significance test and obtained a p-value. Like I said, we'll show you how to compute those later. For now, we're just going to interpret those. But the p-value was 0.1404. Now, explain what it would mean for the null hypothesis to be true in this setting. And let's interpret that p-value. All right, so here we go. So the null hypothesis is that the population mean, mu, is actually 1,300 is true. Then the mean daily calcium intake of the population of teenagers is actually 1,300 milligrams. All right. Now, assuming that the mean daily calcium intake in the teen population is 1,300, there is a 14.04 probability of getting a sample mean of 1,198 milligrams or less. That's what the p-value is telling us. Just by chance in a random sample of 20 teens. Okay, just by chance that's going to happen. Well, you kind of have to make a decision based on the strength of the evidence in favor of the alternative hypothesis, which is against the null, and measured by the p-value. Now, if the observed result is unlikely to occur by chance alone, when the null hypothesis is true, so it's a small p-value, we'll reject the null hypothesis. All right, now if the observed value is not unlikely to occur by chance alone when the null hypothesis is true, so we have a large p-value, we will fail to reject the null hypothesis. Now, it doesn't mean that it makes it true. It's just that we don't have enough evidence to say it's not true. Okay, so that's kind of the big thing. So if the p-value is small, we're going to reject the null hypothesis, include that there is convincing evidence for the alternative hypothesis in context. Now, if the p-value is not small, so if it's large, fail to reject it and conclude that there's not convincing evidence for the null hypothesis. Make sure I always put it in context to what we have here. So now the question then becomes is how small does the p-value have to be for us to reject the null hypothesis? Well, that's a good question. Well, in Chapter 4, we suggest that you use a boundary of 5% when determining whether a result is statistically significant. So we'll say that if the p-value is less than 0.05, we'll say that that's small. Okay, anything less than 5%. We'll say is small. Now, sometimes it may be preferable to use a different boundary like 0.01 or 0.1 when drawing. That's that 99% and 90% stuff that we've talked about before. So we'll talk about that. The significance level A is the value that we use as a boundary when deciding whether an observed result is unlikely to happen by chance alone when the null hypothesis is true. Okay, now if the p-value is less than A, we say that the result is statistically significant at the A equals blank level. Okay, so kind of talk now. A should be stated before data are produced, of course, as we talk about that. So let's take a look at the problem that we're talking about here, and then we'll kind of wrap things up for section 1. A company has developed a new deluxe AAA battery that is supposed to last longer than its regular AAA battery. However, these new batteries are more expensive to produce, so the company would like to be convinced that they actually do last longer. Now, based on years' experience, the company knows that its regular AAA batteries last for 30 hours of continuous use on average. Now, the company selects a simple random sample of 15 of their deluxe AAA batteries and then uses them to continuously until they are completely drained. The sample mean lifetime is the sample mean of 33.93 hours. So that's what we got out of the sample. Now, a significance test is performed using this hypothesis. Is that the null hypothesis that the true mean is 30, and the alternative hypothesis, of course, is that would be greater than 30, and use the true mean lifetime in hours of the deluxe AAA batteries. Now, the resulting p-value is 0.0717. Now, what conclusions could you make at the A equals 0.05 level? Well, all right, so we have that data that we're looking at there. Now, because the p-value is 0.0717, and again, we'll talk about how to compute those values later on. Right now, we'll give it to you. Since that's greater than our A value, our level of our p-value at 0.05, now we're going to fail to reject the null hypothesis. Okay, so again, since that value is higher, we fail to reject it. If it would have been lower than 0.05, then we would reject the hypothesis. So we hadn't failed. So we do not have convincing evidence that the true mean lifetime of the company's deluxe AAA batteries is greater than 30 hours. Okay, it doesn't mean that it is true that it's actually 30. We just don't have enough evidence to reject it. And that's kind of the key there, as we say. So again, we can't say that it's true or, accept it. We just say that we fail to reject it. That's kind of the language that's used there. All right, so again, the AP tip that we have is that use those two-sentence structures. So again, always pay attention to the verbiage. The more of this you write in the way that they like it, the higher points you're going to get. The first sentence should give a decision about the null hypothesis. So we're either going to reject or fail to reject the null hypothesis based on an explicit comparison of the p-value to the stated significance level. All right, so the second sentence should provide a statement about whether or not there is convincing evidence. So again, if we fail to reject, we would say that there is not convincing evidence, again, for that alternative hypothesis in the context of whatever the problem. In that case, last case, it was the batteries in that case. All right, so that takes care of section 1, at least the first part of it here. We have a handful of problems there from the textbook that we can get going on, and again, just kind of getting used to just the null hypothesis, alternative hypothesis, p-values, and the such. So until next time, I'm Mr. Bone.